How's it going? This is Dave with 15 for Coffee, business English for international superstars. Anyone out there using English as a second language, third, fourth, fifth language in order to advance your career, get a better job, find better markets, or take advantage of markets coming into your country. This is for you, where we're going to break down how to access all these opportunities by using proven sales strategies from Fortune 500 companies, from the largest banks and brokerages in the United States. So you're out there, you're a maverick, you're a go-getter because you are using English to step outside of your comfort zone for a better life and a better job. But maybe you're having some issues, maybe you're coming across some challenges in your pursuit of these results. And the most common ones that we find here at 15 for Coffee are where we get into situations and our skills don't transfer into English. We're pretty good at something, or we're really good at something in our own language, but we're not getting the results that we want when we speak in English. So what we're going to do, we're going to break this down. We're not going to talk about a lot of phrases and vocab. You already learned that. What we're going to do is focus on what we can do right now, no matter what level you're at, to get a better result by focusing on the strategies, how to use your language, right? The University of Chicago says that people who are able to process solutions and strategies in a second language make more rational decisions because we tend to think more logically and less intuitively. This is really important because it helps you analyze what you're doing, be strategic, and use language in a way that isn't just memorizing words, but really understanding the processes and the secrets and strategies that you can use to have a more confident experience and navigate yourself through that tough interview, through that meeting with your boss, the presentation, the client meeting, the upset customer, whatever you're dealing with, so that it's a lot easier. Today, what we're going to do is walk away with a tip on how to handle objections, a roadmap on how to handle objections so that no matter what happens in your conversations, you're ready. You're not having to memorize a bunch of say this when they say this or say this when they say that. Forget that. You're going to learn the techniques and strategies so that you can handle these situations in the moment as they come up with no problem. Okay, let's get into it, guys and gals. I just say guys because it's just my habit. My name's Dave. I'm from Omaha, Nebraska. I grew up there and I worked in banking and finance. If you haven't heard my story, check out the previous video on Ikigai, which is your fruit of life or your purpose of life. And I talk a lot about why I started this and what it means to me and why it's important for me to share my gifts with all of you out there who have the energy, the foresight, the strength, the courage to use your gifts in a unique way to find better opportunities and make more money, maybe get your dream job, maybe live the dream lifestyle that you want, or to provide for your family. Whatever you're doing this for, we want to help you have the right resources. And by looking at that, let's get started with our game plan. I want to go over this with you, and then we'll get right into handling the objections. Where's my game plan? Where are you at, game plan? But before we get there, let's walk through this. I want to walk through this with you. I want to remind you guys that one of the most influential factors of your success are these three things right here: empathy, curiosity, and great questions. Empathy, meaning you actually try to understand other people. You want to understand their situation, especially if you're in sales. You want to understand their past. You want to understand where they're at right now. You want to understand what's important, what they're frustrated about, what their fears are, what their goals are, what's keeping them from moving forward. What has their experience has been? What is their personality like? I want to be curious about what's important to them, where have they been, all the things. Empathy, curiosity. It is the motor that drives your leadership. It is the motor that drives your initiative to connect with other people. And finally, your superpower is having great questions. Having great questions that you can prepare before you have the meetings. Having great questions is so awesome. I love seeing the look on someone's face when I ask a really good question and I help them look at a problem, solve a problem that they've had for a long time, look at something in a new way, or just feel inspired and motivated again, or maybe just be heard. Because sometimes people get run over and they feel like they're not being seen. And if you can see someone and be polite and inspire them, that can make a huge difference in their lives. and really help them connect with you faster. You're here because you have a talent, you have a skill in English, and because of that combination, you have a great opportunity for success. The internet is over 50% English, jobs, social media, international business, lingua franca, English. You go from 3% of the market, of world market, and you 10 times your exposure by learning English. So most of you are already here because you already have some type of English skill. So let's go ahead and capitalize on that. But before we do it, let's look at this. Let's not look at that. Let's talk about what we're missing. When we learn English, we never learn this part. We never learn how to handle objections. We don't learn how to have a tough conversation. We don't learn how to influence a group of people to listen to our ideas. We learn vocabulary. We learn phrases. We learn conjugations and all that stuff, right? It's important, but what really is going to move the dial for us is having a strategy, okay? So we need to reframe our thinking. It's not about having more gifts. Most of my students are intermediate to advanced. If you're a beginner, that's fine, but keep this in mind. Reframe your thinking. It's not about how much you have. It's about how you use what you have. It's not about how much you have. It's about how you use it. So instead of just getting more and having small increments of confidence, let's change how we use what we have and exponentially increase your confidence and increase your effectiveness, all from just understanding an idea. It's not from memorizing a long list or conjugating or anything. It's just from having that moment where you go, oh, that's how this works. That's how I can use my English. That's how I take the paintbrush and the paint that I have and actually make something beautiful on the canvas. That's how I take my grammar, how I take my phrases and my prepositions, and how I create a sentence and an engagement and an environment that helps me have better effectiveness. So what we're going to do, here's our plan. We're going to take your current English level. We're going to add proven strategies. My name's Dave. I'm providing the strategies from the largest banks and brokerages in the United States. I had a 17-year finance career, 7 investment licenses. I did over $150 million in phone sales in about 3 years, and I'm a professional copywriter. Later on, we can work on phrases and vocabulary and pronunciation and conjugations. Right now, I want to give you something that's going to move the dial for you immediately. My favorite and most influential is probably the most 3 important things is your value proposition, video 2, your pre-meeting checklist, which I believe is video 3, and then also your communication style, which is video 4, or maybe it's switched around. Either way, those are probably the most important things, right? The important strategy pieces. So if you're already in this, make sure you go back and check those out so that this is even more powerful. So we're going to get into today, as promised, my big promise is we are going to give you something you can use no matter what level you're at so that you can walk out of a meeting, walk off this video and have a better way to have a better conversation and get better results, okay? So today we're going to get into handling objections, right? And I want you to think about this first. Embrace the objection. A lot of people look at objections and they go, oh man, oh, here we go again. But look at it this way. Say, oh, I'm curious. Do you have an objection? Because I have a really great solution. What's your objection? Have that attitude, right? And then really an objection is just an uncertainty. It's just something that is uncertain for the client, or it's something about trust. And this is another important point, is that humans are emotional. So we actually process information first in the emotional cortex of our brain. I'm not a doctor or anything. And we process logic secondary, and logic usually takes a little longer than the initial intuitive emotional reaction. So a lot of times, if we don't handle that emotional connection, we're going to get more objections because there's less trust. Also, objections might be something that you missed earlier on, or maybe it's a question that you need to ask earlier on in the conversation so that you don't get the objection. Like price, for example. Instead of getting a price objection at the end, ask about their price expectations at the beginning. Be transparent about what you provide. But let's say you're still getting an objection right here. That's just a mentality. Keep it in mind. It's Objections, all they are is your client telling you something or your prospect telling you something that's important to them. You want to hear what people's objections are so you can provide a better service and a better product so that you get less objections because you're finding a better client. You're finding the right people because you've learned from the objections and you're contrasting that with your intent and what you provide and the value that provide. Again, video 2, value proposition. If you like this video, go ahead and subscribe. If you want to be alerted to next week, we're going to be talking about how to build rapport. That's next week. Hit the alert button so you get the alert. But if you want to learn about the value prop, number 2, okay? Handling objections. So you get the objection. You don't want to have an emotional reaction. You don't want to be like, oh man, what are you talking about? That's stupid. No, you want to say, you know what? That's a good point. I understand that price is important. Time is important. That's important to you. I know that we talked about X, Y, Z. Bring up something they talked about earlier that's related to it, right? But first we want to acknowledge it. Okay? I agree with them. I say that's important. I'd want to look at that as well. So now I want to understand more. I might say, earlier you mentioned this. What changed for you? Okay. Tell me more about that. Did you have something like this happen in the past? Did something happen where you weren't happy or you weren't satisfied? Maybe they're not telling you this because they don't trust you. So again, building rapport. We'll talk about that more next week because that's really important to help mitigate objections by having a good relationship. You're less likely to object to your friends as you are to a stranger, right? So having a good rapport technique and being able to have that in your strategy is going to help reduce the number of objections that you have, right? So we want to investigate. We want to ask some questions. Tell me more about that. I want to hear your story because, you know, as a professional with this, it's my job to do this, again, using the value proposition. Tell me, how does that work in your situation? What is your background? What is your experience been? And once they share a story with you, you just want to confirm this and say, okay, that's really interesting. I want to have a conversation. I want to talk about, okay, I like that. So you're saying this, right? Is this what I'm hearing? Let them know that you're listening. Let them know that they're heard. And then get more information and get confirmation from them. Get more clarity from them. You can also do another technique, which is called implicate. What happens if you don't take care of this? What if you avoid this in order to save yourself from this pain? What if you create another pain because you tried to avoid one pain? So you want to start to get them to think about the future and how their decisions are impacting them. And if their decisions are based on fear, or they're based on something else, or they're based on a miscalculation or a misunderstanding or a lack of trust. Then you want to talk about what is the benefit to overcoming the objection? What is the benefit to ultimately finding the correct resolution? And guys, remember, it's your job to guide them through this process, okay? The need payoff, and then we want to close. We want to say, okay, it sounds like here's the objection, and you can negotiate around with them on the objection. Maybe you don't lower your price. We don't want to lower our price, but maybe we narrow the scope of the offer. Maybe we get more specific feedback on what they need to get where they need to go. Okay? So guys, again, this is a strategy. It's a process. So you can mark this out. You can role play this. You can practice this. You can pretend like the conversation is happening in your mind. You can work with a colleague. You can work with someone else. You can role play. How would this go? If you were the client, switch roles. Why are you giving this objection? Think about that. Think about, why is he telling me price? Why is she saying time? Why are they saying this? Put yourself in their shoes. Have empathy and be curious. And if you ask the right questions, you're going to uncover this information sooner in the process. And we talk about this a little bit. There's a beginning, a middle, and an end to all of our interactions, okay? There's a beginning, a middle, and an end, right? So if you're getting an objection here, maybe there's something here we need to go back and look at. If you're getting an objection here, maybe there's something here. Maybe we're talking to the wrong kind of clients, right? So there's a lot the objections can tell us. Do not have a negative reaction. That's the last thing you want to do. Embrace the objection. How can you learn from it? And when you have objections, figure out how to overcome those objections or front run the objections and avoid them completely. And then next time it happens, it might not ever happen again, but if it does, you're ready. And it's not going to blindside you, and you're going to go, oh yeah, that's a great point. It is expensive. You mentioned that your budget is this, but your income goals are this. How are what's your alternative plan if you're not going to be able to spend money? What's your other plan? Like, I want to understand. I'm really curious about how you can get to your goal, which you told me earlier. So anyway, there's a process around this. It takes a lot of practice. The difference between the master and the student is experience. It is failure. The master has simply failed more times. So the more you get out there, the more you do it. I'm giving you this information. This is information that took me 20 years to learn. I'm giving it to you guys specifically for those of you who are non-native English speakers using English for professional success. I want you to have this because it's going to make a big difference in how you approach conversations and how you react to the conversations and the results that you get. So I hope this was helpful. If you like, go ahead and subscribe. My name's Dave, and I will talk to you later, guys.